welcome back to the Horseshoe Theory. If you're here on accident, don't leave. We don't bite. We can't over the air anyhow. That's how radios work. I am Bradley Foster, one half of your host team.
And
And
I,
of course,
oh, sorry, Bradley. And I'm AJ Albaaj here representing the people that might bite. I'm just kidding.
he is a man that clearly needs no introduction. Uh, so, you know, there's one thing that we've kind of danced around the whole time that we've had this series, and we've talked about it, but we've never. I don't know. It's almost like by the time that we started it, we're already sick of hearing it. Now it was weeks ago, and here we are, right? COVID, and holy, it is oofta, is what's going on locally. Uh, it is, and this is per. Uh, take your pick. The Hill, and North Dakota records the world's highest COVID 19 mortality rate. The world's highest. Now, this is in rural, small, mostly over the summer and fall, North Dakota. And, it's easy to kind of get exhausted about COVID. It's easy to get lost in it in this abstract thing, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, in a sense, it's almost easy to treat it like gravity, it's there, but you don't pay too much attention to it. But the situation is just beyond the pale in the local listening market. I mean, the Fargo-Moorhead area, it's just out of control. And to be honest, it's not looking good. It's looking like whether it's under a Biden administration, etc. So, AJ, what do you make of this crisis of crises, really, that's happening in back home in North Dakota and stuff?
Well, so what I make of it is, to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect the people that you care about, you got to wear a mask, people. Things, you can't operate like it isn't real because it very much is. And hopefully the listeners here, I hope that you don't know anybody that has passed, but I live in Texas and I know a number of people's family members that have passed away. When I had COVID this summer, my coworker said I was the first person he knew to get COVID and survive. So this isn't a joke. Today was a big milestone for the country as well. We hit 250,000 deaths due to COVID here in the U.S. And be careful, y'all. Wash your hands. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. So they normally tell the people to sing "Happy Birthday" twice. I hate that song, and I hate singing it twice. So when I'm washing my hands, I sing the chorus from "Africa" by Toto. It works out to be about 20 seconds. So if you guys also hate that song like I do, and much prefer one of the greatest songs ever, "Africa" by Toto, that's a 20-second song for washing your hands.
There you go. Practical life tips. I think that Toto is beloved, or at least that song is beloved across the political spectrum.
I completely agree.
I haven't checked in with the auth lefts in a while, but I'm pretty sure they're on board too. Maybe some, come on, there's got to be some college students. Let us know.
Right. So, Bradley, how's your family handling it? All of my family, they now live in Minnesota. In Minnesota, they have the mask requirements. They're closing restaurants after 10 p.m., no alcohol, that type of stuff. What is your family doing to stay safe? And let's talk about some North Dakota specific requirements, because those are pretty recent and pretty new.
Yeah. So, well, it's actually kind of unfortunate. Members of my family have had it. It's kind of a fact, at least in my immediate family, in my up in the northern Minnesota area that's had it so far. At least personally, I mean, knock on wood, right? But so far it seemed to be relatively on the mild side, which is, a big relief. But it's a lot. As far as I know, I mean, obviously people are masking up, hand sanitizers everywhere. I haven't, you know, COVID and stuff. I can't really remember the last time I was there, but hand sanitizer was abundant. Uh, so I think it's really going to come down to uh, what's going on in the. I don't think that any government mandate is going to make the difference, but I think that if anything's going to save it, and I hope that this comes through, but I really hope that things calm down and thank God, we have two vaccines that now look like they're 95% effective as of today, if I'm not mistaken. Pfizer and Madero, Moderna, something like
Moderna.
Moderna. I was close.
Yeah,
I was confusing it with a beer that shall not be named. Pooh. But, so I really think that, and this might be kind of tangential, but hey, it's a Friday at 5 p.m. What else is going on in the COVID era? I think that one of the things that's going to be really beneficial in the fight against COVID as it remains, and I mean, fortunately, like I said, knock on wood, and granted, I'm not like the healthiest person, but relatively speaking, uh, COVID isn't what you'd call an. I still don't want to get it. The long term implications are downright spooky. Friday the 13th was 5 days ago. I feel like that's close enough. Uh, but it's not like an impending doom. You know what I mean? In the
yeah. So
literal, but
yeah,
some.
so I can dip into that potentially long-term effects. So one of my friends, she's 24 years old. She's a young person. She got COVID about the same time as I did, and she wasn't able to taste food for 6 months. So
Wow.
she said she just now regained her taste of scent, her sense of smell, and her sense of taste. So I mean, just imagine, she had this young, strong immune system, and she was potentially almost like lost her sense of taste and smell for her life. Like she was at a couple months in, she's like, yeah, hopefully it comes back, but she went to the doctor and they told her they don't know if it'll come back.
That
uh,
is.
that's scary. I mean, I don't know about you, Bradley, or to our listeners, but I love food. Okay, some people eat to live. I live to eat. Right. I travel to go to nice restaurants. I travel to get taste great food. I pay lots of money to have good food. Uh, I hate cooking, so that's one of the main reasons I spend money on food instead. But my girlfriend likes to cook, and so she cooks great food. But I mean, that's one of the main things I do in life is eat, and to lose that enjoyments, that's something that I'm not going to take a risk for, you know?
I hear you. It's definitely. It's serious. I think that the big thing for me, right, at least, or I guess as a young person in this epidemic, I guess I'm fortunate, but speaking in terms of like the other impending danger about COVID, and this is twofold because one wave of it is going to be hitting everyone in certain industries, and secondly, if you do test positive, that's weeks out of work. You know what I mean? Speaking
Yeah.
as a, you know, I mean, it's already. I know people talked about 2020 being the best blah 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 ever, but especially in the wake of everything that's already happened, losing 2 weeks of your income at least, that could be a lot. You know, a lot of people are calling it saying it's like a financial death sentence for some of these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. What is it? It's something like 40% of Americans would like have troubles paying for a $500 bill.
Yeah,
You know what yeah, I completely agree with you. If you potentially have to quarantine for 2 weeks and you're put out of work, that's huge implications.
mm-hmm.
And if we're talking about the financial side, I'm going to pivot. We're talking a bit local to the local area, Minnesota, North Dakota, but let's talk about in the national aspect. There hasn't been any fiscal stimulus to help anyone in a number of months. And we're recording this on Wednesday, November 18th. And Congress decided to adjourn for the holiday season. And they're not going to be back till after the holidays. So, you know what I mean? It's pretty tough for us to try to convey how seriously it is and how serious it is that you should take it when our leaders don't seem to be taking it very seriously.
You know,
It's just shameful, man.
it is, but I think you hit on a really critical point there, which is to say that for those people, and I know that the fatigue is getting real, right? I understand it. It's been tough. Like I was saying earlier today, one of the only things that's kept me sane this year is that football is back. And I don't want to jinx anything, but what I will say is that one team in particular who I gave up on is now not looking like one of the worst teams in the NFL, record wise. Uh, let's keep it going. But those have been the only things. I get it. But we're near the end of this. And I think one of the things that's really going to bring it about, and this is inadvertent, and this is really, really, you could call it just kind of spitballing, but this is my prediction. So I read an article, sources close to President-elect Biden indicate that he's not going to charge President Trump. He's going to do a Ford, which is to say that he's going to either pardon him or not investigate him or whatever he's going to do. Trump's just going to, in an ideal world, fade away, right? And I really think that what we're going to see with Biden coming in and with the rollout of the vaccine, especially, and I know it's relatively early and all that stuff, but if these early reports are right, I mean, a 95% effective vaccine with minimal side effects, oofta. Oofta. That almost sounds like, and I know it wouldn't happen overnight, but that's what we've been looking for. You know what I mean? And credit to the Trump administration, the one thing that they've done right, one of the only things they've done right is that they've really kind of allowed for a streamlined process for treatments and vaccines, whatever. And it's tough to find a lot to praise the Trump administration on in response to COVID, but I think that at least deserves like a you tried star. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Warp Speed has good intentions, and they've already created a number of different vaccines, and they actually started ramping up the infrastructure, and they have vaccines ready for deployment right away. Yeah. And there's at least a somewhat coherent strategy, which is, deploy it to first responders, medical personnel, the people who need that vaccine, so that way they can safely take care of the rest of us, then get it to, high-risk people. That's all stuff that...
and all that, yes.
Yeah, that's all stuff that we're going to learn more and more about as these vaccines continue to develop, as they continue publishing results. And ultimately, more than likely, it will be in the next administration is when the deployment happens. I just don't see real approval at this point. They're starting to release their first early results, but it takes a little while for them to release those results and then for the FDA to process them. And we still have the holidays, right? So the government, just like every other company, a lot of people need to use PTO at the end of the year. So, these approved or the approvals of these will probably be after the holidays. And then the question is, are they going to be before Biden is inaugurated or after? And who knows?
I think that it'll start Like, the very, very first trickle will start beforehand. But hey, I'm not a doctor nor a high-ranking bureaucrat, so what do I know? But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm really sensing that we're going for a cool down. I feel it in my bones. You've
What do you
seen,
mean by cool down? Like the national atmosphere or the national?
yeah, the national atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, I think that we're still not out of the woods on COVID yet. Uh, Not out by a mile. And you can't overstate that enough, right? Like, I mean, do all the right stuff if you can, blah, 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 blah. But I really believe that our political discourse and everything is starting to unclench just a little bit. And I'll bring up things that I've seen on both sides of the aisle to suggest that. There was, I believe, it was Senator Manchin. Manchin? I always
You're
butcher.
talking about Joe Manchin?
Manchin, yeah, Joe
Yeah,
Manchin.
he's your senator now.
Huh, yeah, I am. I've been meeting a ton of people lately, folks, and it's been a lot. But he said that he wouldn't do the court packing, which is, in my opinion, pretty big.
Yeah, I mean court packing's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, so that's, I think that that is a huge source of potential fuel that just got taken away. And the other thing that I see as positive is that, and I know that there are some Republicans who are coming out and standing by Trump, but it's not like an overwhelming majority. You know, it's not the whole entire apparatus of the Republican Party supporting him. So I really get the sense, and I've been wrong about a lot this year. I'll be wrong about a lot this year, but I hope I'm right on this. That people are kind of, if this makes sense, just ready to put a lot of stuff behind us. And I think that this hyper tense, uh, hyper polarized situation. I mean, maybe not even the polarization levels, but I think that we're going to turn down the heat on those discussions at least, you know? I
Yeah,
you
yeah,
hope it burns itself out.
I think tensions will probably go at least a little bit down once people are out of quarantine and everybody stops looking at Facebook for 8 hours a day and that type of stuff. The real question is whether there's going to be other external events that turn up the heat, and I would hope not, but who knows what's going to happen anymore. I'm 2021. Let's see what you got, right? I don't mean that seriously. Please don't be worse than this year. But in general,
I don't know if it'd be possible, knock on wood.
yeah. But we've got a lot of things to look forward to in terms of turning down the temperature. Main thing is, I think temperature will be brought down once people are able to do things again.
I
Uh,
know.
Once
Excuse me.
if you wear masks, be safe. As we're all saying, try to. I know it's cold. I know it's cold, but since you have to be inside, try to be inside with people that people that you don't mingle with. Don't go out to bars, that type
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. All of that stuff, it matters, and it not only
Yep.
protects yourself and your loved ones, but it protects healthcare workers.
And
It,
like,
pro-
it's
it
common sense, you know?
Exactly. And my big issue is, my girlfriend, she's a healthcare worker. She's not on the front lines, but when there's overfill for the local hospitals, her hospital will take in that overfill. And, these people are working same jobs, regular jobs, just like the rest of us. And it's scary for them to go to work and think, is today the day that they might get COVID and they might die.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fair to the healthcare workers, and it's not fair to to your friends, to your family, to your loved ones. But I mean, just going out and partying. I mean, you could not. Yeah, driving by a hospital and giving them the middle finger, like it's even worse than that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's
there's a time and a place. You know, I mean, I remember those days when the numbers were declining earlier in the summer, and it seemed like we were kind of heading in the right direction for a little bit. But and and the thing that you really, really, I just want to say one more time, if you can, try and do a little bit of everything. Wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart, use hand sanitizer and all that. Yes. Try not to be in places for too long. You know what I mean?
don't lick doorknobs. That's
Yeah.
my big lesson. You don't want to lick doorknobs in 2020. We can do it. We
You
can do it
know, I
next year,
believe
not
I
this year.
believe that I've heard from a very credible sponge source that that's illegal on other planets.
Oh, I
Snoke
didn't
should
know
get back to me on that. But yeah, and what I'm really excited about, and I'm just absolutely thrilled for in 2021, I think that the spring is kind of a wash. We'll get that behind us. But my lord, AJ, I don't know. I guess I don't know this about you. I'll assume that you're not. No disrespect. But are you a fan of a guy by the name of Sturgill Simpson?
that. No, who's that?
Sturgill Simpson he's my favorite modern country singer. I don't know if I'd even call him country anymore. He's a lot of things. Definitely, yeah, enough to call him country. But he's released 4 different albums, I believe. No, 5, and they've all been very, very different. And so, just for reference, he went from like '90s country to really hard into psychedelic rock and psychedelic country, really hard into like I don't even know what I'd call his third album. It was a masterpiece. It won a Grammy. Uh, A Sailor's Guide to Earth. His fourth album, Sound and Fury, was hard rock. Admittedly, I never really could get into that album. And his fifth album, which dropped just a couple weeks ago, dropped on a Saturday, and I was all pumped because had a good day of college football ahead of me. And I was humping on Spotify, and there it was. But he released a bluegrass album with
A lot of variety.
yeah, man, he does everything. And the bluegrass album was mostly covers of his own songs. Uh, if you're a Nirvana fan, for example, look up his In Bloom by Sturgill Simpson. But so eventually he's going to be touring again, and I imagine if he's going to be doing folk stuff, he's going to be at folk festivals. And man, I've been saying that I kind of want to know what the 60s were like, and now I feel like I know a little bit too much of what the 60s were kind of like.
You're
I feel,
talking about the protests and stuff, right? That
the
definitely
protests, the political,
the race war. Yeah.
yeah. I know
Totally.
that Nixon was 70s, but throw Trump in there. He's a Nixon-esque figure. You've got wars in the Middle East, like in Vietnam, not as coverage, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of parallels. I think it would be great if we had like if Sturgill pulled an opposite of like Bob Dylan, a Minnesota native, and went from hard rock right into folk. Imagine that. Imagine if we had a summer of folk. You go to Coachella and the main set is half folk. Imagine that.
That'd be cool.
I
Yeah,
am so here for it.
that'd be cool. That'd be different. Yeah, I'm a little nervous because I know that everything that summer or that fall is going to be the most expensive concerts of all time.
Oh, no joke.
That's one thing that I'm pretty nervous about. Like, I live in Texas. I can go to Austin City Limits, which is a great music festival. If you want to come, Bradley, we can do it. It's got a good amount of variety, and it's a reasonably priced festival. It's like $250 or $220 a ticket. It'll probably be like $350.
Is that like camping included, or is that just showing up for the festival?
That's just showing up to the festival. But they get huge artists. Like they've had Jay-Z perform there. They've had the Killers. They had Childish Gambino last year. That like they get big names. It's a good music. It's, in my opinion, in terms of value for your money. And I can introduce you to a bunch of Texas people, so it'll be fun. But I know that everything's going to be expensive. Flights, hotels. I mean, everybody's going to be so sick of being cooped up. What'll be interesting is whether cruises will be expensive or not. That's what I'll be looking at. I don't know about y'all, but I'm thinking about cruises. Speaking of cruises, I don't know if you saw this, Bradley, but the first cruise in the Caribbean since they shut down like U.S. cruises, it was like this. It was like the second day that it was in the waters. They had 5 COVID cases on the cruise ship.
Well, we're just clearly not. When you said cruise, I got hopeful for a moment that our favorite Texas senator had admitted to something, but
Oh, no.
the Zodiac Killer remains at large.
No, unfortunately not. But it was hilarious to me that the first cruise was such a big success for COVID.
COVID really is. I know that we mentioned earlier that all the legalization, all the decriminalization, at least nationally, I mean, pot was polling at 68% in favor of legalization nationwide this year, according to the most recent polls. 68%. All right, drugs won this year. You know who else won? Patrick Mahomes. $500 million deal. He's got himself a Super Bowl, and if he can knock off the Steelers, he's got himself another one. Got great teammates. Unbelievable. Patrick Mahomes won this year. COVID is also somewhere in the top 3. I think you could argue that COVID did the best, but we have yet to... I don't know, maybe December's a really good month for the human race. Probably won't be based on recent trends, but you know what? Maybe we pull through.
Yeah, I mean...
You feel me? Maybe it's like the Blitz, where everyone in Britain, where everyone huddled together and did enough and pitched their part and tossed those jerks back out. Well, what if we do it? What if we imagine if America could take this serious for 35 days, AJ? Let's say tomorrow everyone wakes up and takes it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And does the little things. I think that's the big thing. Because what I've seen where it gets dangerous is people will be good, and then they just kind of say the heck with it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
After a few months of whatever. And, that's, I guess that's just humans are social beings. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to, I think this needs to be said too. What this has clearly also shown is that we need better options for people with mental health issues. Because I think it's something like more than half, by a good amount, of millennials, or people under 25, was it? I think it was something like 58% had, I think it was suicidal ideation this year, or suicidal thoughts this year.
Yeah. So real quick, I just want to say something because I got to defend millennials because you and I are both millennials, but 25 or 23 and under now, they're all Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah, all that, whatever.
Yeah, generations don't matter, but yeah, I just wanted to.
I'm right on the border.
I want to be able to blame Gen Z for all the problems in society, like what millennials have been blamed for about killing the napkin industry and killing the diamond industry and killing Applebee's and stuff. Okay, maybe all those things aren't very good, okay? Especially Applebee's. They're not a sponsor and would never be a sponsor, so I'm sorry, y'all. But I used to work at Applebee's.
Really?
Yeah, I was a waiter there for a while. But we don't need to talk about my waiter horror stories.
No need to talk about waiter horror stories.
I think with that, we can take a time for a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about not COVID.
Yeah. Hey, AJ, can I ask you one little question? Just like a little thing about us, right? How many you know, uh, what was your first like job in high school? What was the first thing that you actually got paid a check to do in high school?
I was a server at a banquet hall.
Really?
Yes, sir.
A
Food
banquet
service
hall
industry.
server.
Yeah, been in the food service industry for all my low paying jobs. Great. It's great times. Great people. Not the customers. I was talking about the coworkers.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be back in a bit, folks. This is the Horseshoe Theory, blah, 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 blah. You know what it is. You've got great music coming up. Don't touch that dial. Blah, 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 blah. Do your thing, Duke. Oh, hey there, everybody. Welcome back. You know what it is. And unless you don't, or are stuck in like a Groundhog Day type scenario, that kind of feels like we are. This is the Horseshoe Theory. I am Bradley Foster.
And I'm AJ Albaaj. It is Groundhog Day. It's still March in my book. This is the longest March of all time.
It's kind of like being a bubble team right before the bracket drops, you know.
Right.
So, real quick before we get started, folks, I misspoke. Sorry, me. Maybe I saw something else somewhere, but from an article that I have in front of me, there's a nationwide survey done, and it found that 47% of, so about half of the young adult population showed at least moderate depressive symptoms in October. This is close to 10 times the pre-pandemic rate. As with depression, suicidal ideation and self-harm symptoms have also increased. Almost at 37% of young adults experience those thoughts in October. That's a tenfold increase, whereabouts, 10 times from the 2013 data. So, one of the things I've always said is that this lockdown, whatever, even though there might be steps that we need to take, blah, 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 distancing, whatever, that need to be taken, I think it's important that we talk about the other side of that, which is people that are, you know what I mean? Because socialization is especially important for young people. You know what I mean? Especially if you don't have a family. So, just one more time, folks, if you're struggling, everyone says this, but if you're struggling, reach out. If you know someone that's struggling, reach out. If you know someone, as a matter of fact, just kind of reach out and say hi. You know, things are weird. It's a weird time. It's nice to say hi to people. But yeah,
Completely agree.
so with that, hi there, AJ.
Hey, Bradley. We're going to talk about non-COVID stuff, but something that I think has big implications not just for the incoming administration, but for the world as a whole. It looks like we're finally done with this war. And finally, drugs won the war on terror, and we're finally throwing the white flag in Afghanistan. So, huge, huge wars potentially coming to an end here.
Go on, AJ.
Yeah. So, if for those that don't know, the Trump administration is moving to withdraw all troops from Afghanistan, and that's before the incoming Biden administration. So, it's a pretty big deal. You know, we've been there, probably 19 years? I think we've been there 19 years, right?
We've been there so long that there are kids that weren't even alive on 9/11 that are fighting in Afghanistan.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so you know, it's good to get the troops out of there. It doesn't really say much though, right? Because most of our activities, like the troops, are there to help train the Afghani government troops and to kind of present a ground force to intimidate the Taliban, even though we're trying to make peace treaties with the Taliban and stuff like that. But most of the warfare that we do is from the air, anyways. So it's not going to make that realistic of a difference if you're somebody like me. I care about not drone striking civilians. I think that's a big deal, but this isn't going to change any of that.
Well, Though, I think that it's a good. Well, first off, I think that that kind of signals that Trump might be thinking of doing something in 2024. Ooh, we'll talk about that some other day, though. But I kind of like it just insofar as maybe as the anti war left goes into hibernation, this might help the anti war right wake up a little bit, I don't know. Maybe the Republicans in Congress might actually stop a military engagement, probably for all the wrong reasons, but So I don't know. I guess that I'm just excited that everything's not just universal war, even though both parties kind of and everyone seems to be okay with a type of universal war. So I feel like we're actually seeing, for better or for worse, some actual, maybe just a sliver of substantial changes. I don't know. I very much could be wrong though.
I'm gonna push back on that. I disagree, and the reason why I say that is because we're not even drone striking Afghanistan the most right now. We're drone striking Somalia the most. I mean, Trump blew the records that Obama set for drone strikes just out of the water in Somalia, right? So,
Swords.
so it's not. America is constantly at war. That's just it, unfortunately. And if you're someone like me that's very anti-war, it's a big deal. It's just something that I have big problems with. And whatever happens, they're going to find the next place to have troops. We have hundreds of thousands of troops deployed around the world for global stability or whatever, and we're going to continue deploying drones and drone striking weddings, drone striking funerals, drone striking, any group gathering of people because one person could be there. Uh, that's all stuff that's not going to go away. And all of that stuff is kind of, Congress doesn't need to do anything about it because they've already given the executive the power to do that without their permission and to do it. And as Trump showed, kind of to do it wherever they want. We're not at official war with anyone in Somalia, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Bradley?
We haven't been at actual war in, I believe, since World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. We could argue all day about the constitutionality of a lot of these engagements, but yeah, it's it's maddening how it's just kind of, as us libertarians say, like any government program, there's no thing so permanent as a temporary government program. And I think that these wars in particular are just so insidious because it was almost like the pro-war lobby learned something from Vietnam, because there is no real, what's the end game? We've never had an end game. We've never had a best case scenario. I mean, briefly after we bombed the hell out of Saddam Hussein in the early 2000s, we had an end game of setting up a garden of democracy where everyone would love everything. But, we proceeded to send more troops, and then less troops, and then more bombs, and then less bombs, and then we kind of funded ISIS, and it's been the whole thing.
Yeah.
First, we had to go fight ISIS, which is to say that I think that it's almost natural, and what I think it's going to take, honestly, and we've seen people from the right and the left run on this, right, ending the wars. Trump kind of did, but to be honest, it just kind of felt like Trump stole the best talking points from the other people on the debate stage and delivered them Trumpian and ran away with the nomination. But we've seen it from like Ron Paul and Rand Paul. We've seen Tulsi Gabbard. We've seen others on the right and the left that I'm sure that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. And Bernie Sanders run on bringing the troops home, right? And I think that really, and who knows what's going to happen in 2024, because I think that the DNC, well, we always say that the DNC's got soul searching to do, but I feel like they've never really done any. So I don't know if I trust them to do any by the time the 2024 runs around, even like a moderate amount. Uh, but I think it's actually going to take having a not only a pro peace candidate because Obama was a pro peace candidate, right? But I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens if we get a genuine someone with a good pro peace voting record, etc., nominated for a major party. Uh, I think that that's really one of the only, and it's weird. And like I said, a lot of the stuff I talk about here, I hope I'm wrong about, but I think we're going to need sort of a mandate before those kind of gears get going.
Yeah, I agree. And not to toot the progressive horn here, but the only person to vote against the wars is Barbara Lee from California, from good old the Oakland district. She was my representative for a while I was at school. So that it's it. Hopefully she gets to higher office. I'm hoping Gavin Newsom appoints her to take Kamala Harris's seat. I doubt it though because she's not establishment enough, and they'll pick somebody more establishment because that's what DNC does. But besides that, I completely agree. There needs to be a united front to show that it's bipartisan if there's going to be any sort of real anti-war movement in the U.S. Now the question will be. Does anyone care enough to push for anti-war? And I think that question is completely up for debate because there's a lot of things that have energy and that have strong bases behind them. And the people that are anti-war generally, they seem to think that there are bigger dogs to fight when there's not an active, when there's not a really big war thing going on in your face, which by this point, I think we can all safely say that the war in Afghanistan, that's not as much in our face anymore.
That's not even in the back of our mind. You know, it's like the opposite of what got us out of Vietnam, doomed us in Afghanistan. Because what got us out of Vietnam, a lot of people would argue, was television. Because people could see what it was like, you know what I mean? That really seared into a lot of people's minds for the first time, not to mention what war was actually like up close, but how gritty and how kind of helpless, I don't want to say helpless, hopeless it was, you know? Uh, Hence why we pulled out. But it feels like the opposites happened with the war on terror broadly, where there's coverage, there's coverage, there's coverage, there's coverage, there's coverage, there's coverage. Oh, look, a Great Recession. There's a little more coverage, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
even movies in the media, The Hurt Locker won Best Picture in like 2008, right?
yep. I think the last big, I mean, I'm probably wrong about this, but the last big military movie that I remember, and it used to be like an all the time thing, was American Sniper. That was one of the
Yeah,
last ones.
I don't watch those movies really anymore. Just
Yeah,
like it's left a pretty bitter taste in my mouth. I like spy movies and stuff if I want to watch that, but like I don't know, war movies have been becoming tough for me.
yeah. Well, the other thing too, irrespective of what the movie is about, is that it's kind of gotten weird with when movies came out anymore because everything's just releasing directly and things are going on Netflix and like Borat 2, a subsequent movie film, came out on Amazon Prime that day. So it's like,
Fantastic movie.
oh, it
A
is.
fantastic movie if you haven't seen it.
It it was something else. Granted, everything that Sacha that man touches is like comedic gold. I thought it was pretty good. Uh,
Yeah.
but we just don't have that type of like. And granted, maybe a little bit of it is bias too, right? Because I was only really going to the movies before Netflix is really a big thing, which also happened to be immediately after 9/11 and for about the next decade after that, because northern Minnesota there, bud. But yeah, it's. I mean, Hell, you know how we know that this war is getting really, really old? Like, not even kind of relevant? Even the recent, like, video games haven't been about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know?
Kind of. Well,
We, we,
technically,
we've had World War One, we've had the Cold War.
yeah, the newest one is the Cold War, and they
Yep.
go to Afghanistan. They commit war crimes, so that's pretty sick. Ronald Reagan tells them to commit war crimes.
Hmm. Oh, interesting.
What a wonderful way to play a video game too. I mean, I don't know who plays Call of Duty campaigns anymore, but that's like the first thing Ronald Reagan tells you to do is to like commit war crimes.
You know, I gotta say though, and I'm not gonna stand up for the president, but I will stand up for. Man, I used to love those campaign games. I still maintain that one of the best Call of Duties, and it's underrated. People don't talk about it. You forget about it. Call of Duty 3. Call of Duty 3. As a the it was during the golden age of those World War II first-person shooter games where you mostly played the campaign. Oh, beautiful. Just a beauty.
Yeah, I played a lot of COD 3 growing up. Definitely
Oh,
agree. But the campaign, when we're talking Call of Duty campaigns, it's got to be the Modern Warfare of those three games. I mean, just going into an airport,
you can use them interchangeably, by the way.
the Modern Warfares,
Yeah,
all three campaigns I thought were really good.
I know. I just like joking about Call of Duty for doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing every year. That
It's
Call
like
of
Call of
Duty,
Duty Modern Warfare Acid Wash. Buy it.
yeah, it's what is it? It's like Madden, but for shooters. They just release a new one every year with small changes, and everybody buys them. Not anymore though, so that's kind of nice because Fortnite's free and everything.
Yay,
But
Fortnite.
we're kind of getting off track here.
AJ, shut up. I'm trying to get the Gen Z kids.
Oh man, if we're talking about if now that you mentioned Fortnite, did you see the Biden campaign like had things for Fortnite? They had like a rally in Fortnite. They had a campaign material that you could use in Animal Crossing and stuff.
Well, maybe their target audience.
Yeah, I mean that's how you know that our generation is infiltrating all these political campaigns. Is that they're releasing targeted stuff to try and get 18-year-olds to vote.
You know, I'm surprised that Biden wasn't. I bet that his first idea was like, we could get a Tamagotchi. I know that's not what Biden sounds like, but
I
kind
don't
of
think
too
he
close.
even knows what a Tamagotchi is, man. He,
Yeah.
he he was telling everybody that we all sit around the radio at night. It's like, man,
I wonder what Joe. This is a weird rambling thought, but I wonder what Joe Biden thinks that young people are like. Because his policy and a lot of things about him, I don't want to say the phrase out of touch, but Joe Biden looks and is every bit of a man that's been in the Senate for 4 decades, right?
yes.
But like, I do wonder what he thinks we do. Do you think that in Joe Biden's mind we're like hosting this at a soda fountain, at a socially distanced soda fountain?
Maybe.
By the way, Jimmy, get me a double chocolate next time.
Yeah.
Yes, Joe Biden, that's exactly what we're doing. Please, please, more funds for soda pop posters. That will get us around next time.
Speaking of Biden targeting the youth, did you see the proposal that Biden is looking to forgive some amount of student debt?
Man, you know, I really, I think that forgiving student debt just, with one exception, and I think that exception is kids that signed when they were 17, because I think it's a little weird that we're allowing 17-year-olds to take on that kind of debt. I think that would be a challenge that might actually be valid. But man, and I just saw a graphic on it. Like I said, I really, really hope he doesn't, but it
Oh,
would be.
he doesn't. This is the horseshoe theory. We have opposite opinions on this. I want to hear your pitch for why he shouldn't.
Yeah. It's a handout to the wealthy, to the middle and upper class. That's fundamentally what it is. You're taxing people that didn't go to college. You're taxing people who are smart enough to get in the trades. You're taxing people that never had, maybe didn't have a chance to finish high school or got a GED or, I don't know, worked as a manager in a restaurant, whatever. Actually, even that requires a degree these days. People that got community college degrees and took a lot of classes in high school, you're penalizing those people who got no objective benefit to your degree. If you look up the statistics, most people that have student loans, shocker, are middle to upper class. That's that's the distribution. So it would be a massive handout to people that already have a higher earning ability. Uh, and furthermore, it doesn't get rid of the problem. And in my opinion, the problem is that the federal government makes it you can't go bankrupt on a student loan, right? Like
I
that.
don't. That's not the fundamental problem, but I agree with you that this does not solve the problem at all. I
Yeah,
completely
but
agree.
here's where I'm going with what the problem is that we've just jacked up the supply of cash so much, and we've really created a vicious cycle where people are trying to, because the government backs up all the loans. It's not really a value proposition anymore. My when I was at North Dakota State, they added in a big aquatic center. I still, for the life of me, can't figure out why they added a big aquatic center in the middle of Fargo, North Dakota. It was never something that I heard people like wish for. You know what I mean? But all this influx of federal cash over the last few decades has made these schools compete more and more aggressively for it, and it's often more and more on stuff that they isn't really fundamental to educating people, and it creates a lot of problems. And furthermore, a lot of people that shouldn't have gone to college have gone to college because of this, and that's been bad for them because they were misled into it as well, right? So I think really, and it's a multifaceted thing. There's not one policy you can do. It's like healthcare.
Yeah,
Whether you're a progressive or a libertarian or just want to grill, there's no one policy that's going to fix even most of this, right? Like, there's a lot of work to do.
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
But
so there's a couple things. There's a lot of things that you said. I'm gonna try to hit them in a couple ways. Because this is something that's brought up all the time. Um, so one, the idea that people that went to community college don't have student debt. People that go to community college do have student debt, and this would help them. They don't have as high of incomes, and they do have student loans. Now, their student loans are in smaller amounts. Now, that's a reason why the majority of the student debt is held by those with high income earners, because when you look at doctors, right, doctors go to school for like 8 to 10 years. Yes, the majority of the pure raw amounts of money is like doctors, lawyers, because they take out student loans to go and get their high paying degrees. I agree. Biden isn't suggesting canceling all student debt. There isn't any policy anywhere close to that. The only person that had that was Bernie Sanders. I thought Elizabeth Warren's proposal was much more reasonable, where she would forgive $50,000 of student debt. That to me made most sense. Anybody who went to like in-state schools, anybody who went to like your mid-tier in-state schools, anybody that went to community college first, then went to 4 year, they'll probably have student loans somewhere underneath that $50,000 range. And it does help out, people that have a lot of student debt too, because it could cut their bill in half, cut their bill by 25%, that sort of stuff. So I thought that was the more reasonable thing. And Joe Biden is somewhere right below Elizabeth Warren, but there isn't any actual policy out yet. So that's not out there yet. But I agree with you that if you forgive all student debt, like, is there a potential for a wealth distribution to the top? Yes, there is that potential. Absolutely.
it'll happen. I guarantee it'll happen. No matter the system you set up, I guarantee you it'll be by massive proportions to rich people.
Right.
It'll be the same kind of people who can pay millions of dollars to bribe someone to get their kid in UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I point out. But another thing too is, that as it's always pointed out, when progressives want to increase taxes on wealthy people do pay a majority of the taxes. So, them getting something in terms of a value proposition from what they've put in, it's not the worst thing ever. It's also not the best thing ever. I personally just don't think people should pay for education to better themselves and to better society. And I think that could help fix a lot of these problems. Speaking from experience and from, statistics, the main reason that the cost of college is increasing is not because of the pool facilities, because most of the time those pool facilities are paid for by sports boosters, sports fundraising, that type of stuff, and then they use it to get better athletes to then increase their sports fundraising. But most of it is the increase in the administrative bloat at these universities, right? And what's creating like all this administrative bloat? That schools, it's so dang hard for schools to get funded. They have to get funding from all these different sources. They have to do all these loan applications. If you're someone like me who had a lot of aid, I mean, just dealing with financial aid is a nightmare. They never seemed to be staffed enough, and they had like 50 people working there full time all the time, and then all their supervisors and their whole management talking to other departments, talking to other parts of the school, different advisors at all different levels of the school. So that to me is really what the cause of the increase is. It's a number of administrators. The University of California. This is just an example. It's not California is not a great shining example of a public school system, but the University of California system, they have a single president that runs the entire UC system, which is 12 campuses. Just her office, or his office now, just the office of the president for the UC University of California, they have a budget that's of the size as another college campus. And that's just administrative stuff. You know what I mean? Like, how can the administration of this system be the cost of another college campus? That's so crazy to me, right? And these people, all these administrators get paid a lot of money, and that to me is a lot. If you could trim the fat, which you should, from the universities, they absolutely should. Then they will, and I think that having easier systems for them to get funding would help at least start that process, and then creating more competitive incentive structures, so that way schools are actually trying to lower costs, not raise costs, would be good. But another thing is that students want more out of school because now it costs more.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a vicious cycle.
right? Like, students are expecting so much more. They're expecting a bunch of counselors to take care of them because they're spending. Just to let y'all know, if you're out of state at the University of California, it is $60,000 a year.
Oof, duh.
Yeah,
And
crazy, man. And just think about how much of that how much of that goes to like not your education, right?
yep. And let me say, I think that this is a really great example of some of the dangers of, because of the situations that led us to the student loan mess, right? No one was like plotting behind the scenes and like trying to actively rip people off, you know? Well, maybe people that were pushing stuff on 17-year-olds in high school and having them sign away for tens of thousands of dollars of debt, that could be another conversation. But for the most part, there wasn't anyone that set out to just completely, you know what I mean? To just entrench us in a situation that by and large doesn't work. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think that that's, and, my suggestion is I follow the KISS method in a lot of my life. Keep it simple, stupid. Uh, I still maintain that for a lot of these things, we just, it feels like in governing and funding, good intentions are enough to clear the path. And I think that the student loan crisis is a perfect example of, I don't want to say a yes man syndrome, but it's a perfect example of people, like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Just such a, because everyone wanted college to be more affordable through every step of this, right? We wanted more people in college. And now it's just this horrible creature. And it's not even like the opioid crisis where there were some greedy drug manufacturers. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I have a couple of opinions on that. One, I agree. It's basically our patchwork method of solving this problem did not solve the larger problem. And that's the issue. And that's why I agree with you. That's why you should keep it simple, stupid, as in it should just all be free. That's
Well,
why
can't
that's
be.
my method of keeping it simple. What do you mean it can't be, man? We spend trillions of
Nothing's free.
dollars on the military.
Yeah, we spend. That's taxpayer dollars. As a libertarian, I'm against spending all that money on the military too. I still think we should have the best military. I just don't think that fighting in Iraq for no stated reason serves any national security front. That being said, though, because that does cost us, because for every $1 trillion that we spend trying to, even if we make it free, get kids into college, that's trillions of dollars that can't be spent on other stuff. That's trillions of dollars that get taken out of things like the private market. It's trillions of dollars that get taken out indirectly out of things like investments, mutual funds, pension funds.
I don't think that's an accurate comparison.
No, because there's a lot when you're just talking about these trillions here and trillions there. Someone always has to pay for it.
But I don't think
It's
that's an
not
accurate
just
comparison.
it's
Because
not
people are spending trillions of dollars on education already. So we're just redirecting that from going to banks where they're making trillions of dollars in profits off of the interest off of these that are federally guaranteed. You're moving that money from it being to banks to it being to government, and that governments can then distribute it, and you're acting as if the money dies there. There are people that get salaries. The students would get money to spend on housing costs. The students would get money to spend on food. If in my ideal world, I don't think that would actually happen. I think that people would probably still have to take out loans for living costs. But to say that this money just dies, I completely disagree. And in fact, I think that the money does less work being in a mutual fund than it does if you redistributed it back to the people.
You know what? That is the most ludicrous. I don't get fired up about it a lot, but that is the most.
Let's
You're
go.
going to have to censor this. That is the most bullshit claim that I've ever heard. Money in mutual funds works way harder than any money in government. And let's break it down why. Firstly, we're going to have to define what exactly a free education means. What education level are you entitled to? That's a whole level of things. Secondly, what you're doing then, because you claim that it's free, you're taking money from other people. Most reports indicate that for every dollar in taxes that you draw, it actually destroys between $1.60 and $1.80, give or take, in actual wealth because people respond to incentives. That's a thing that people do. Not to mention, if you raise more taxes, you have to have more administrative stuff. That's only a little bit of it. But people will try to avoid taxes on stuff like that. People actively, if people see that certain policies are likely to be enacted, they move their money overseas, they move their money offshore. They do all types of crazy stuff to avoid paying taxes.
They already do that.
Yeah, but they're going to do it even more, and it won't.
But they already do it at unreal rates. Did you read the Panama Papers? What are they going to? They already all move it off. You're acting as if that they're going to.
So
it's already not here. I mean, I don't understand that argument.
Instead of working in,
it's already there.
Pensions are funded through things like the equities market. Pensions are funded through the funds that are held in mutual funds. That's a huge portion of it. Furthermore, the wrong issue is being addressed here, okay? We don't need higher education for the sake of higher education. We were supposed to have higher education because it was supposed to help make better workers, better citizens,
which
all of that stuff.
It does all of that.
But does it really all of the time, though? Does it to the extent that we've had people, though? Does the amount of jobs that we see for things like, I don't know,
Yes.
political science or psychology or English or whatever. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that we don't need anyone to do those things, but we've had way too few people in things like truck driving, things like welding, things like plumbing. And I've never been very good with my hands. I almost failed kindergarten, true story, because I couldn't tie the shoes that we had to do in kindergarten. But we've underutilized and undersold a lot of these careers. There's a lot of alternatives to college that, guess what, save everybody money. They save everybody money, and more than saving everybody money, they work way better than the current infrastructure. We have things like apprenticeships. We have things where people can actually learn and get paid for it.
I
We have
want
a
all
lot.
of that stuff to increase too.
But you're not going to get it if we direct all of this attention towards, oh, free college. What's happened is that the federal government, good intentions, has overstimulated, has oversaturated the people with college degrees market, which is why, like, to be a manager at a restaurant, a lot of the times you might need a bachelor's degree. 20 years ago, you didn't need a bachelor's degree to manage a Perkins. I don't know about Perkins in particular. I'm just, saying restaurant names, right? Please don't sue. 20 years ago, you didn't need a bachelor's degree to manage a Perkins. Today, you do. We've had a severe amount of degree inflation. The market is already saturated for a lot of this. We have to look beyond it. Because the other thing, too, whenever you do this, the next battle for education isn't necessarily what's happening there. It's what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years. And I certainly don't think that a centralized government agency or government program is going to be able to actually adapt. That's one of the things that's made the American system, economic system, actually work for what it does, is its level of dynamicism. It's a very dynamic economy, a very dynamic place. But getting back to the point, those trillions of dollars, think about the other things, not only that we could spend it on, but that's a ton of money pulled out of circulation. That's a ton of money spent. And here's the thing.
You say out of circulation like it dies, man. It doesn't die.
It does die. A lot of that money does die. Those administrative salaries, which a lot of it's been going to.
But if it goes into administrative salaries, those people spend money. Those people live in America. Those people actually aren't moving their money out offshores, right? So you're saying that the money dies.
That's a fallacy. You have to spend money to hire those people. You have to spend money to train those people. You need to spend money to give those people computers and desks, and that's not where it comes from. You're diminishing legitimate production.
Get taken out of circulation, though. You're saying
because you're taxing it from people, and you're saying that you know what's best for the whole country, and instead of people actually using their money how they see fit and maybe enrolling. And listen, I have we can talk about solutions out of this student loan crisis later on, but instead of allowing people at the ground level to fix what's a uniformly broken system and going by a uniformly top-down approach, starting with the federal government, which always, by the way, has the best of intentions, you're going to make the whole situation a lot worse.
All right, Bradley, you've had your turn. It's my turn. Which I'm sorry, listeners, that we've gotten off on a completely separate tangent. But Bradley wanted to have this, and I can't let him just say all of that without any response. So you mentioned we're decreasing the value of a bachelor's degree. I mean, that's the nature of a more educated populace, right? As people need more education to be a more productive worker, then that's what happens, right? We allowed people to get high school diplomas for free, and now what? You need a minimum like high school diploma to even start flipping burgers now, right? So I don't really understand this attack about we're devaluing the value of this degree when that's like the nature of progress, man. You're saying that we shouldn't do it when it's happening right now, when people are taking out trillions of dollars to pay for it, right? And we're talking about money being taken out of circulation, okay? As I already pointed out, the government pays people to do jobs, right? You know when the money dies? When the people that are taking out these loans have to just pay it to a bank, and those banks have way less administrative fees, and they're just making money on top of the interest on interest fees and all this type of stuff, right? So the idea that, one, if you're saying that the federal government's the reason why the school is expensive, sure, let's say that. Okay, then what about all these private schools that don't get as much federal funding, that they're mostly paid from tuition and fees? They're all really expensive too. People are still going to take out loans to go to the best schools. And that's just kind of the nature of the education, right? Education, you know, it sucks, but this is the reality of the world, is that if you go to a good school, more doors are open. It sucks. Sorry, y'all. That's the way it is in a competitive workforce. Unfortunately, that's made schools really competitive. That's made it so that way people do pay hundreds of millions of dollars to get into private schools and all this, that, and the other, or they had people take the SAT test for them. That's how important schools are. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. That's the way life goes. I completely agree with you that we need more trade schools. I'm 100% behind you on that. And I agree, because I do think that the schools are teaching trades the wrong way. I do think that schools are not emphasizing it. You can go to Germany where they go straight up, you know, you go to a trade school or you can go to college and all of it's paid for there, right? I don't understand why the richest country in the world is like, we can't figure out how to balance how to get a good amount of workers into trade schools and how to get a good amount of workers to go to college, or how to get a good amount of workers that don't go to any of those. It's just, it's kind of mind-boggling to me that we say, you know, people will sort it out for themselves, when right now, when people are trying to sort it out for themselves, we have this crisis that we now have to try and solve. And then going back to, you've said so many points. You went for a while. What was it? Taking money away from people or whatever, the taxations, man. In my opinion, you probably wouldn't even need a tax increase, because you could just cut from the military. We spend trillions of dollars on the military, and no one bats an eye at starting a third war or fourth war, or Trump drone strikes an actual leader for Iran, and everyone's like, are we going to war again? Well, no one said, I can't pay for that. You know what I mean? It's just, to me, it doesn't make sense. And as I said, even if you said, listen, the government isn't as efficient, you lose 60% of every dollar or whatever, I'm going to need to see those studies, because I haven't seen that. But you keep on saying the money dies, and it doesn't die. It goes back into circulation. Where it does die is when the banks get it, and the banks just make that money, and then instead they're distributing it to shareholders or whatever, and that's when the money dies. When you have all this money happening and we're talking about distribution to rich people own most of the stocks. Even with pension funds, even with 401ks, rich people own most of the stocks. The top 10% own 90% of the stock market value. So we want to talk about a wealth transfer. The stock market itself is one too, man. So a lot of these attacks, and I understand that government doesn't always make everything better. I completely agree that government doesn't always make everything better. But, you know, government made this problem, and the solution to it is to say, fuck it. Sorry, Duke. And the solution is to say, nah, let's pull out and not deal with it. But we're supposed to agree on the Horseshoe Theory podcast, Bradley.
Well, I guess it.
I think this should be a whole nother show, because we went off that, and I would love to do more preparation for it. I did not expect you to go to level 8 with that, but it's okay. I hope our listeners enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm sure that they did. If they don't, they'll let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and if you want to call me an idiot, I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
Tell me that I don't know and that you want to keep your money. I'm 100% okay with that. If you want to tell me that I'm an idiot and that is your money, I heard it a million times.
Well, I'll let that quote finish it. I think that was pretty good on AJ's part.
That's what. Like I said, I've heard it a million times.
I agree with AJ. He's an idiot. All right, that has been the Horseshoe Theory. We're running out of time, and Duke has other stuff to air. Cindy and all of them too. So this has been the Horseshoe Theory. Of course, we're on 88.1 FM in the Fargo-Moorhead area and online, but you know how the internet works. So this has been Bradley Foster.
And I'm AJ Albaaj. Take care,
Yeah,
y'all. Wear a
everyone
mask.
have